Have you ever felt disrespected by a movie adaptation or some other form of media? Like someone just spat in your face as you handed over your money and time. Like the creator of that thing fancied themselves a paycheck rather than any artistic integrity at all. Like the source material that you so thoroughly enjoy and are passionate about was just thrown out because some moron thinks that they know better than the people that created the IP in the first place. Recently, I had the displeasure of finally watching the Monster Hunter movie 4 years after it was released. I had avoided it like the plague because I knew that it would only serve to make me sad, to upset me, to inspire lots and lots of negative emotions. I've not watched any clips, no video reviews, nothing, because I just wanted no part of it and I wanted to live in ignorant bliss. But then it came up in another video of mine, one that was supposed to come out before this one, but I just had to get this off my chest. So I thought, fine, I'll do my due diligence, I'll watch it, I'll try to enjoy it for the garbage that it probably is. Just mindless Hollywood action slop. And yet what I watched was a movie that so thoroughly disrespects the history of the series, the fans that made it what it is, and the developers and artists that had brought the world to life over the last 2 decades, that it's actually baffling it got greenlit at all. So with an hour and a half of my life just gone, never to return, let me save you the time and go over the Monster Hunter movie. Everything it does wrong, everything it does right, and just get these feelings off my chest. Let's start with a quick objective synopsis rundown. I'll save the criticisms for a moment, and if you know how the movie goes, you can skip ahead to this timestamp. We open with a dragon ship sailing through a large desert. The ship is full of hunters and several characters designed to look vaguely like the cast of Monster Hunter World. Basically, it looks like the opening cutscene from World, but on the sand, not on the ocean. The main hunter, played by Tony Jaa, is thrown from the ship when several Diablots attack it and left unconscious in the desert. We then transition to the modern day real world and watch a squad of US soldiers drive through a different desert, bantering with each other and searching for some other lost squad of soldiers. After finding some evidence of those other soldiers, they are then overwhelmed by a huge storm which transports them magically to the new world, where they are promptly attacked by a black Diablos. The Diablos then kills a couple of them, pretty violently I might add, though there's next to no blood because we can't possibly have the rating get too high. Sorry, the criticism is slipping through there. Their weapons have little effect on the Diablos and they shelter in a nearby cave. This cave system leads into a gigantic underground nest of Nursilla, which have been entirely redesigned for the sake of this movie, and all of the squad are brutally killed by those same Nursilla. All of them, apart from our main character, of course, Artemis, who is played by Mila Jovovich. Artemis then runs into the hunter, they fight each other, they get over it, and they join forces to take down the Diablos and escape. Artemis learns how to be a hunter in a quick montage, they slay the Diablos, and make their way towards the tower in the distance. Upon arriving in an area that vaguely looks like the ancient forest, a Rathalos attacks, causing a herd of Apsaros to stampede, but the protagonists are saved by those that were on the ship at the start of the movie, just in the nick of time. The Admiral, who is played by Ron Perlman, explains that they need to get to the Sky Tower to close the portals between the two worlds, and so they do that in another montage. They are attacked by the Rathalos again and end up bringing it into the real world by accident. After the Rathalos just destroys a platoon of soldiers, they do manage to slay it somehow, following which a Gore Magala appears and Artemis, the hunter, and the Admiral chase it back through the portal, and the movie just ends there. There is a mid-credit scene that shows the Seeker watching the Gore Magala fight and the Meowscular chef getting involved in the hunt, but that's it. That is all there is. They really thought that this was getting a sequel. Okay, so that's the movie. You no longer have to watch it. Thank me later. It sounds okay when it's laid out like that. Nothing too offensive, except the ending being obvious sequel bait. But the issues begin before you even get into how it screws up being a Monster Hunter movie, because it just kind of screws up being a movie in the first place. I'm no cinema nerd, I don't know any film theory, I just know what I like looking at, and this isn't it. The way this movie cuts between shots is so egregious that it's hard to watch at times. In the worst cases, your eyes will be assaulted by nearly a dozen angles in a matter of seconds, no shots are given any time at all to establish any form of scene or setting, and it just leads to being a jumbled mess. The action sequences in particular are so incoherent and hard to read that I was constantly lost and left thinking things like, but wasn't that guy/monster just over there? How are they over here now? That doesn't make any sense. Just watch this. I have not edited this at all. See what I mean? The color grading is all over the place too, the dark shots are clearly brightened, some of them even have some artifacting in them as well, and the CGI, whilst great at times, can be absolutely awful at other times. It's just not a competent movie regardless of its setting. So now please allow me the room to complain about why this sucks as a Monster Hunter adaptation. There's some obvious things of course, but let's talk about everything that sucks. I was going to have a section of this video where I went through the entire film and pointed out every single thing I hated, but when I was 8 minutes into my rewatch and the list was already 20 points long, I thought perhaps that would be overkill. So for the sake of brevity, let's just focus on some of the major pain points. Tying the new world to the real world. Sorry, our world. The obsession with adaptations of fantastical stories somehow needing to be some kind of isekai for a tough American soldier to fall into is tired and shit. It works on occasion, but in this movie it was just so incredibly unnecessary and only seems to be like US Army propaganda just for the sake of it. How hard would it have been to just make it some kind of coming-of-age story or hero's journey for the primary hunter? Good lord. The Admiral looks like this. Look, no shade to Ron Perlman, he's cool, does a great job in Hellboy, but he's a 70-year-old man in this movie. The Admiral is supposed to be this mountain of a man, a head taller than anyone around him, whose personality is larger than life. This guy right here is not picking up a giant boulder to block a Rajang's lightning beam, that's for sure. And what's with how low budget his makeup is? That wig is criminal. And while we're on the topic of mischaracterization of the side characters, there's this scene where the character that's supposed to be the serious handler is taunting and whistling at Artemis as a prisoner like she's a monkey in a zoo, and it just made me want to end it all. And also, both the normal handler and the guy who's supposed to be Aiden fucking die. They just die in the Rathalos fight at the end. What are we doing? The locales are wrong. This is specifically meant to be set in the New World. The New World is not just the whole Monster Hunter planet, it is specifically the continent that Monster Hunter World is set on. So why does it open with a sand ship sailing through the Great Desert? And we know it's the Great Desert because we see a Daren Moran skeleton. The tower is also not in the New World. It is almost certainly in Fonron. It just shows how little they care about the world that's being represented in this film. And it just feels bad. The monster redesigns and variety. The best part about any Monster Hunter thing ever is the monsters, and the amount of times they get screwed up in this film is insane. There's like 6 monsters total in the whole thing. Diablos, Nosilla, Rathalos, Apsaris, Cephalos, and Gormagala, and that's about it. I guess the Meowscalus chef is here, so felines too. The Apsaris are fine, you can't really do much to mess them up. Diablos is depicted as this almost evil, spiteful, gatekeeping demon that is entirely impervious to real-world guns, which seems absurd. Nosilla may as well be an entirely original monster with how it's depicted. It's been redesigned into this smaller, generic, grey spider monster that looks like any common mob out of any MMO ever. They made it into this swarming, subterranean monster that is allergic to sunlight, just all of these traits that have not once been shown in the games at all. Also, there are no Nosilla in the New World. Not that we're aware of anyway, there's very specifically a lack of bug and bug-adjacent monsters in the New World. So what's with that? The Cephalos shows up for a split second, a real blink and you'll miss it situation, and is made smaller and put in the water rather than the sand. The Rathalos is utterly gigantic and is referred to as, wait there a second, I'll let the Admiral field this one.
The most fearsome of creatures, of Rathalos. Almost impossible to kill. Their only weakness is just before they breathe fire.
What? And Gormagala, I don't even know why Gore is here. It's just bait for a sequel that will never happen. So yeah, only 6 monsters in this adaptation, half of which don't even show up in World at all. Great stuff. Weapon misrepresentation. Several different weapons show up in the film, and they're all wrong, except for maybe the bow. And even then. The Great Sword is used exactly once, and it is to stab the Diablos in the head, of all things. No big strong hit, no charge attack or anything, just stabbing. The monsters are shown to be impervious to a minigun and an RPG, so I'm unsure how a bow and arrow would be of much use. The dual blades burst into flames when going demon mode, which I mean, I'm not a dual blades guy, but I never read demon mode as meaning fire sword mode. They're just going more attack damage mode. So that doesn't make any sense. The Admiral repeatedly uses a switch axe to do saids, and even if they're meant to be the switch axe discharge, he doesn't swap its form once. And yeah, there's probably more, but you get the idea. And so onto this movie's only real saving grace. And don't get me wrong, this movie ultimately cannot be saved. It is beyond saving from the get-go because it's in the hands of a man who doesn't give a shit about the source material or the fan bases of the series he adapts to the big screen. Doesn't care about what makes people fall in love with these worlds in the first place, and fancies himself smarter than you. He knows what you want better than you do. This is, of course, rarely reflected in the critical reception of his films, but alas, he keeps making them. I suppose they're still making money, good or bad. What I don't understand is that this was clearly trying to capitalize on World's success. It came out like a month shy of World's 3-year anniversary, so why exactly would you go so out of your way to change everything from the thing that was successful? Like, brother, if you want to change so much about the IP that you adapt, you may as well go and make your own original zombie or monster film. You can still cast your wife as the lead in those as well, but I suppose no one will want to see them because they don't have an established fan base to exploit, and your films don't inspire much confidence without that existing clout. Oh boy, that was a doozy. That was a bit of an ugly color. A bit bitchy, a bit ranty. What was I talking about? Oh, right, yeah. Tony Jaa is easily the best part of this film. He plays the main hunter, and he's clearly just having fun with it. His very serious one-line deliveries, where he's usually just saying the name of the monster, though rare, are pretty intense. He gets the chance to show off a bit of his martial arts skills. In isolation, he's doing a good job with what he's been given. The only part I think that made me smile at all in this film was after Artemis had introduced him to chocolate, so he just started calling everything that tasted good chocolate. It's pretty tame comedy, yeah, but I thought it was funny. He was charming enough. And that's like it, dude. The monster CGI is cool for the most part. Seeing a Diabolos and a Rathalos and things like Apsaros was neat visually, but they did make them look kinda evil and sinister, which I always hate. I didn't ask the question at the start because I was too irate, but yes, the Monster Hunter movie is really that bad. What an exhausting experience. Just a real stinker of a film. Save yourself the time and go and watch a good monster hunting film. Something like Sea Beast. That's a banger. Alright, rant over. Catch you guys later.